We're back again with the Pineapple Perspective podcast. I'm Troy Hooper, your host. This is sponsored by Pepper Lunch Restaurants, and I have a great privilege of having another friend on who I've had the opportunity to get to know over the last year and a half. Um, and I'm really excited to introduce my audience and the world to Diego Diverde with Greener Pastures Chicken. Diego, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Good to see you, bud. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Diego, we're going to get into your bio and a lot more about Greener Pastures and your excitement for this project. But we always start the conversation off because we did a chance to talk to restaurant operators, restaurant executives, people in the hospitality industry, adjacent suppliers and vendors like yourself in this case. And we believe on this show that everybody's in the hospitality business and that there's an opportunity to bring hospitality to any job, role, business, whether it's in or outside of hospitality directly. And certainly you're involved in adjacent and connected to that. So we want to know from your perspective what hospitality means to you.
Sure. I think a couple things would jump out is just being intentional. I think, our farm in context, I'd say 99% of chicken in the whole country is raised in a barn or a warehouse. We're in that less than 1% that's raised on grass. So there's real intentionality as far as like what happens here at the farm. And then for me in my role, who I look for to partner in this farm with. So that would be one part of it. And then I do have some background in restaurants. So, to extend on that a bit, what else does hospitality mean to me? A big part of my role is also communication. So the service we provide, when stuff happens with our restaurant operators, if something breaks down with a broadliner, for example, we'll step in on weekends, whatever, to make it happen, to make sure everyone has what they need. So, say between being intentional and then, just the communication part of my role is, I'd say I'd pick out those two things about what I think we bring to hospitality.
Yeah, and getting to know you a little bit, I can say that I view you with a pretty healthy dose of empathic mindset. I think you think a lot about how other people feel when they interact with you, this brand, this product, what it does for them, both physically, personally, and as a business. So I would add on that for you that you really do try to think about others far beyond how it serves yourself. So I'm going to add that to your reasoning. Where does that come from? Tell us about your upbringing and your entry into hospitality and restaurants. Where does that belief system of being intentional come from?
I guess it would still be an intent, like an extension from my work with the farm, if I had to be honest. It's just, being intent, and it's something I've learned from, this is, what other, as far as like, as well as other projects I've worked on. If you ask about my upbringing, I grew up in California. I was kind of lucky. My uncles work in media, so from a young age, I got to learn a lot about media. One uncle has a small production company. Another has a small ad agency. Another used to run a bunch of blockbusters. So I learned a lot about media growing up, and then that's what I studied when I came out here to UT. How that connected with the farm and um, how I got here. I was just recruited out of a role I had with United Healthcare, and I wasn't really looking to do something new, but I had a sample of this chicken, and I was like very sold. It was a new farm, a new opportunity, and I really wanted to be a part of it. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity. It's been a wild 3 years. When I started, I worked on the farm. We didn't have distributors or many customers, and the short 3 years to see how far it's come, it's been extremely gratifying.
Yeah. So while we keep alluding to this thing called the farm, tell us what Greener Pastures Chicken is for context.
Sure. So we have the most certifications of any broiler farm in the United States. It just goes above and beyond what the typical chicken is. I think probably a lot of your viewers have seen enough food documentaries or, any kind of farm documentaries around what this issue is all about. And basically the problem being confined animal feeding operations where you just toss a chicken in a barn, you turn on the lights to keep them awake and force them to eat and get them out to market as fast as possible. And our farm's in that less than 1% that really truly commits to not just raising the birds on grass, but our land is organic, our feed is organic. Um, it's just a totally different bird. So nutrition wise, more omega-3s, more antioxidants. I mean, the Houston Texans use our products for functionality, but also because we take good care of the birds, it just lends to it a totally different texture. In these short few years, we've had the pleasure of working with James Beard winners. I mean, chefs that went on to compete on Top Chef, and they all first and foremost jump on just the texture of our products compared to your typical just barn raised chicken. And then there's a rich, clean flavor because we're moving the birds fresh grass every day. But there's an incredible mission, through the farm, through all these different values. I mean, because we're moving the birds every day, they're regenerating the soil as we move them along. So it's a true regenerative farm. We are the first and the only broiler farm in the United States to get regenerative organic certification, which is a very strict certification. So we bring a lot that is makes it like we don't have the baggage of old commodity chicken. I'm not going to name names, but pretty much probably all of your viewers know the big chicken companies, right? And so we don't have that baggage when it comes to this brand. So back to your earlier question about my background, that's also part of what I bring to this farm is, I oversee the marketing and the sales. While we're still relatively small, I think that's still viable, but it's just a lot of fun for me to be able to work on creative with amazing artists and get the support of the farm. And then on the sales side, working really hard to try to generate as many leads as possible. And, that way, we just kind of focus on potential partners that are aligned with our values or want to get there, right?
Yeah, that's a great segue into who the customer is. And, when you talk about a less than 1% value proposition of doing things in such a unique and high quality and intentional way, it makes it sound like a product that is probably unattainable for the average restaurateur or institution or education system or all these other avenues, maybe because price would be a barrier or maybe a misunderstanding about what the product is and what it is intended for. I think you guys are really working, and I want you to talk a little bit about this because both from a sales perspective, you have to explain this to all kinds of different markets as you start to reach out. But from a marketing perspective, I think you do a really unique. I mean, first of all, I don't know how many chicken farms in America have their own Instagram handle, but there are probably a lot of little small family farms that are trying to get some chicken out the door necessarily, but you're trying to do it on a different scale. And I think that's the difference that you guys are coming from this mindset of what a small family farm could probably pull off, but you're doing it and with a goal of expanding it to a scalability that actually can compete and make it accessible to large buyers. And that's large retailers, institutions, corporate, maybe retail, food and beverage. So that's a challenge that hasn't really been taken on, right? We all think of these order online things that you can have a TikTok channel now, and that's how Butcher Box and some of these other product specific companies have been grown. But you guys are going kind of right down the middle between that e-com small play and that major institutional play, and you're trying to skirt that line. Talk a little bit about that intentionality and why that's part of the mission. And it's not really about making money per se, but it's really about a mission driven business.
Yeah, no, to your earlier comment about other, let's just call it big chicken or CAFO, producers, why don't they promote or market that aggressively? It's because they don't want people to see what they're doing. If they really just view themselves as maybe suppliers at best, they're not proud of what they're doing, and on the flip side, we're very transparent, and it's something I lean into. It's something I became aware of pretty quickly as I tried to kind of evaluate what this opportunity could be. It's just that, there's a lot of confusion in this particular industry. A couple call outs that confuse a lot of people would be all natural or free range. All natural is totally meaningless. There's no inspection required. There's no certification for an all natural. I could set up Diego's all natural in my backyard. Like it doesn't matter, right? And free range is another example along those lines. People excitedly tell me, "Oh, free range farmer." It's like, no, man. Like free range farms usually denuded dirt. The birds don't go outside. There's no contribution to the soil. They stay inside because all their water and their feed's inside. So, that's why. it's worth it for us to invest in and maintain the certifications we have so that that trust is built in because all the other producers have already ruined that trust, and it's important for us, back to your point about just being intentional with our story and who we look to partner with, because that then becomes like a part of the fabric of our brand as we, grow out and start to expand. But yeah, we mainly focus on three channels: food service, institutions, and retail. And we do a bit of e-commerce as well. But I'm really proud of the partners we've gotten up to this point. I mean, we get to work with the best of the best, and I'd say the most gratifying wins are in the schools because that is the toughest one to crack, but they really want our products. It's just trying to thread the needle to just, slowly move the needle. There's thankfully a local food hub model developing here in Austin to where we're trying to build a platform that makes it more accessible for other local farms like us to get into institutions and for them to have access to really high quality local fresh food. So it's all about just finding the right ways to tell the story. That's really what moves the needle for us, because as you pointed out earlier, cost is a big thing, and it does cost a bit more to raise our birds, but also on the flip side of that, we bring more value to the plate. You can, if you are using our call outs correctly on your menu or in your content, you can charge a little more because, consumers are calling out for it. Users online are calling out for products like ours, and it's I can speak to all the different customers and partners we've had up to this point and the success they've had.
Yeah. So talk about when you're there's two sides of this. There's marketing and there's sales, right? And they have to be connected. But when you think about the opportunity that you have on the creative and content and marketing side, what are the messages that are important to share and what's resonating with the audience?
Well, I mean, I'll actually flip that question back to you. I sent you a preview of our documentary, a little trailer. I know it's not out online, but I trusted you with that. I mean, what was your impression of that clip?
Yeah, no, I think I'm a believer at a different level, so I'm a little biased, right? But I'm also come from the practicality of running lots of restaurants, and those restaurants having to be profitable, and those restaurants thinking about not only every ingredient, portion size, and the treatment of those ingredients, but we also want to think about the intentionality of the sourcing of those ingredients as best we can. Um, and so I'm a little biased in that regard, in that I'm listening for what I think makes sense. Now, if I take that hat off and I just think of, I'm a major brand, blah, blah, blah restaurant, or I'm a large institution that's pushing massive amounts of poultry. Let's just say if you've never been to a Las Vegas convention hotel, the Venetian or the Caesars or any of these big, big places that, they can serve 60, 70,000 people in a day. Fractions of pennies, right? Whether on the processing side, the sourcing side, or the production side, really matter because it's at such a scale. It becomes really hard, I think, to get their attention and make it matter. But I have seen, as you and I have shared some conversations with groups that are large institutional players in, say, arenas and airports and things like that, that this is starting to matter. I think it's taken 40 years. It's definitely taken the last 20 years. But to your point, what matters is what the consumer really actually wants, because the consumer tells us what they're going to pay for. And so I think when it comes to messaging, there's a huge amount of ambiguity. Nobody wants to really think about where their food comes from when it comes to animals, right? We're all very sensitive to that system. But at the same time, we have to all think about what's going in our bodies. And you're right. Marketing labels are bullshit. Like, at the end of the day, and this is my show, so I can cuss. Um, Marketing labels don't matter, and
Don't embarrass me, Troy.
they're very confusing, right? They're very confusing. Free range means it's not living in a cage 24 hours a day for its whole life, right? At the end of the day, that's free range. Well, great. But are there 60,000 birds in a building, that, like you said, the lights never turn off and all they ever see is dirt, and they're just confined to huge condensed arenas of other birds? That doesn't necessarily build for a healthier animal and product as well. So I think, to answer my own question that I asked you, is the messaging has to matter to all the stakeholders, right? I think the consumer is the number one. Who's consuming it? And does the consumer ask for and demand, and is the consumer willing to pay for the better product? And I think you can see other products that have come to market that have done that in the last 15 years. And I think social media and accessibility at scale to content gives people like you something you didn't have 10 or 15 years ago, a direct channel, a direct relationship with the consumer, a direct educational opportunity. And rather than what a lot of other companies do, which is create BS marketing lines and taglines that we fall for because we don't know any different, I think you have an opportunity, and I think you're taking advantage of the opportunity to tell the true story, not about just what is it mean, what's the term mean, which I think is very important, but when you put it all together, what is the intentionality and the ethics and the sustainability and the responsibility of an industry? And I think you guys have an opportunity or trying to build something that can have reach at a scale that's more than cute and nice to have, and more than just little like, oh, that works in Austin and it works in Athens, Georgia, and it works in somewhere Rhode Island. No, this can work everywhere, and it can work at scale if we do it right, if we build it right. So I answered your question for you, but I do want to hear from your perspective because you're the storyteller. You are telling the story, and what part individually or what parts collectively matter in this story, and how are you going about making that content digestible, interesting?
Yeah, well, so I try to be very intentional about which platforms go where. I mean, which content we place on which platforms. I mean, I break and simplify our at least promotion roadmaps very simply. There's some text, there's some photo, there's some video, some audio, like what we're doing today, and collectively, it's meant to be just more focused on one specific thing. I mean, if you had to break down our call outs, the big ones we focus on, because we mainly focus on Texas still, but local, organic, the pasture raised is still relatively new. I mean, I remember Cameron was mentioning the other day, the first time he heard our next call out, regenerative, he didn't hear that until I think he said 10 years ago. So this is all still very new. I mean, birds have been on grass for millennia, but in a commercial sense, this is still very brand new because it's just a totally different commitment getting the birds fresh grass every day as opposed to, what's a lot more predictable spec wise or just, in general is just stuffing them in a barn and, popping them out in a month. This is all still relatively new. So the regenerative part is honestly the part where I'm working the most to try to get more of a breakthrough. It's still not resonating as much as I wish it was. We do try to find different ways. We create content with the farm manager, with our CEO, with other stakeholders, other partners, but there's a sense of urgency, to farm better because we're, especially here in Texas, with all the growth we're having, we're running out of really high quality farmland because there is that much development here in Texas. So, I've been a part of the City of Austin food plan where they're really trying to rethink, our food system on a local level. And we're trying to take more ownership in that sense. But another way to answer your question too will be, I don't have like an arbitrary posting schedule, for example. It's like what I try to do is the next post needs to be better than the last one. It's what I'm shooting for. It's not like just tossing stuff out there just for attention. It's like I feel good about this and I want to share it. That as simple as that. I try not to take anyone's attention for granted when it comes to our brand.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that, again, back to doing what others aren't willing to do or have never done, or doing it in a way that can have a greater impact, have greater magnetism of message. You know, people want to learn, but they also want to be educated, informed. They want it to be interesting when they learn. I think you're bringing a lot of visuals. I think you're bringing a lot of transparency to the system that has intentionally hidden that transparency because it's not pretty. If you really look at this, like you said, when you look at documentaries and other things and exposés of hidden camera type stuff, I know that you guys would be proud, and you have because you do tours of your farm. Although you have to be thoughtful and cautious, and it is still agricultural, it still is a food safety issue. But I think making sure that the key stakeholders in the supply chain part of the business understand what it means and how hard it is what you're doing, and that you are shooting for the moon as far as changing an industry. Tell me a little bit about whether it's institutional, educational, or even retail, and retail being grocery. When you're having those conversations with these stakeholders and you put these 10 or 15 really high value statements in front of them and badges and certificates in front of them, and you have to educate them potentially, maybe, hopefully, they're an educated buyer. But what are they saying to you? Why are they buying? What is the motivation internally and externally?
So a really gratifying moment for our farm has happened over the last couple of months. We've launched into the biggest retailer in Texas has kind of like a premier chain, like 10 stores. It's called Central Market, but they source the highest quality food from all around the world, as well as, on a local level. But, they hadn't had a true pasture raised bird in there. They've had other kind of similar, or one that had closed down that pretended to be like us. It was very frustrating competing with this other farm that closed down recently. But it's just basically they've never had anything like our chicken before. They're used to chicken in a barn or free range at best. There's just been a lot of like I got to condense it into a 30 to 60-second bit. So I'll focus on our call outs, or I'll create kind of like a couple customer profiles, kind of get their interest. So the four call outs I mentioned to you, we're local, this is organic, the birds get fresh grass every day, and it's good for the land. And then the customer profiles I create are, before we were here in Central Market, it was mainly, either top chefs or top athletes who use our products. And I would kind of tell them why, whether it was the texture, the nutrition, the rich, clean flavor, and just to let them know that, we're just really grateful for the opportunity for them to now take it home and elevate an experience at home. I mean, eating is obviously something so essential to being human. And a really cool part of this farm has been being able to connect with chefs who go above and beyond to elevate an everyday experience that we all have every day and making it special. So that's what I feel like we're bringing to your average everyday shopper now that we're in Central Market. And they're also Central Market's owned by HEB. So, if we can start launching into the HEB stores, that's 400 stores throughout Texas and Mexico. So we're really excited about the opportunity with them, and that's been just an incredible moment for our farm to potentially become, more of a national brand.
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks to the fact that they know who their customer is, they know what their customer wants. And in this case, they've probably never actually been able to fully deliver on the highest ideal of this product, right? They had what they had was the best they could get. But when they found out there was something better and something doing it exactly as if you could do it the best way you are, I think that they see that. The question is obviously it lands on you and it lands on them to share that message, to make it clear, to make it understood, to explain the cost difference isn't just sort of become, I'll use an example here in California, it's super popular on social media, Erewhon. Erewhon Markets,
Oh, yes.
it makes a Gelson's look like a 7-Eleven, right? And so Gelson's is
Right.
kind of Southern California's really high luxury, high quality. Money doesn't matter. We're going to give you the best quality ingredient, grocer, small grocer chain. And Erewhon takes it to the, you go into Erewhon and get a $32 smoothie. But there was
Yeah,
a,
everyone looks like the Gucci of food.
it is the Gucci of
It's,
food. I love that.
I've not been in one, but
But
I've seen people been sending me that all the time.
besides the celebrity name that is on the product, they'll tell you, they can explain to you that every ingredient that went into that smoothie and where they got it from and why that farm does what they do to grow it. Da, 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 da. And so if you accumulate all those items, the total cost of that is outrageous, right? It's unattainable for most people to have a $30, $28 smoothie. But what they're trying to say is if we support this, then and so you're seeing more grocers, like you said, Central Market. HEB has a Central Market for a reason. Out west we have Sprouts and we have Mothers and some other really specialty grocers and retailers. But now that you're seeing mainline retailers really expand organic sections, duplicity of product availability, putting the organic out front, by the way. Like if I walk into my grocery store, if I go to grab limes, it's funny because these are the organic ones, and way over there are the non-organic ones, and there may be a 10 cent per pound difference, but they're really putting it out front and marketing it, not just because it costs more, it costs them more too. It's not just that there's the margin maybe have been smaller for them, but my guess is in regards to your product that they know what the customer wants and they're willing to take the chance to put something like your product on the shelf, which certainly costs them and costs consumer a lot more money. But I think it's all about, can we convey the message and the value proposition, right?
Yeah, the keyword being the value. That's what's gotten us here from when I started a few years ago. Is just getting getting better at relaying the cost versus value conversation. And it's just, again, people are just so used to getting an inferior bird that it took a lot of story, a lot of content, a lot of faith, on behalf of a lot of local chefs and small retailers, who believed in us and wanted to give us a chance and supported us up to this point. And it feels like it's gone by super fast. It was just a few years ago, but yeah, this having this opportunity with Central Market's been incredible. They've also been very proactive, like the foodies they have inside the store who are demoing our products are just very passionate about food, and we're actually bringing about something between 50 to 100 of them out to the farm in October to get more education around this. We've had a really successful launch with this team, and we're going to do an all about chicken cooking class on Thursday. They have a whole series called All About Chicken. We would like to roll them into the second act of our documentary as well. There's a lot there for us to, again, just extend the story, let people know about what the values are. The cost is the cost. I mean, the feed is not cheap. It's organic, but it's a real commitment. I mean, we have maybe one competitor on a national level, but they're not even organic. And I think if you're fully committed, I don't understand why you would be promoting the regenerative aspect of your story, but you're not organic. To
Yeah.
me, and I've talked to other people about this, it's a little bit of a red flag. And they are owned by a big chicken company. So to me, it smells like greenwashing. So I'm really happy that we don't have any of that compromise in our operation, in our brand, and we can share this with peace of mind and not feel like we're gaslighting anybody.
Yeah, I think that's super important. It's just about being wholly authentic. This is not a gimmick. This is not a marketing ploy. Like you said, it kind of made me think about when you said that, sort of the craft beer industry, right? Craft beer was craft beer until Budweiser, Coors, Molson's, all these guys started buying them up, and making conglomerates, and great for the brewer to get it acquired and get that kind of distribution. But the total quality is absolutely compromised at some point when you start to mass produce things. To that point, what is the plan for the farm to be able to stay absolutely committed and authentic to its true mission, and yet still meet the volume that you're ultimately going to end up having, because this success is just at the beginning, seedling stages. And if you're going to change an industry and change how the demand for a product of this quality is created with the consumer, how do you scale this kind of system, which is so interdependent on all of those elements of organic and regenerative, and the organic feed that's custom made for you guys, and all of that? How do you maintain that?
The main thing is definitely just being in line with production so that we're not overcommitting, which I would say is a good problem to have. I just don't want to damage the brand, and overcommit to anybody. So there's always close communication with both our farm and our processing plant. Just again, that's always going to be what decides what we can do and when, right? And with some of the SKUs that don't move as fast, we've been proactive on developing our own concepts. We launched our own virtual wing concept last fall that we're turning into more of a franchise model opportunity. We're really excited about. As long as I'm proactive in our three channels, again, food service, retail, and institutions, I'm confident, that we'll continue to grow. Every year we're growing. If we've had any growing pains, the production team has always been really quick to revise, resolve any issues, and we every year we've been just exploding. So again, it's about just making sure we do not overcommit. And on top of that, that's why it's so important to generate a bunch of leads and then stick to the warm leads because it needs to be people who are actually aligned with our values, who are going to care enough if we run into growing pains. Sometimes I have to remind people, and this is something I brought up, when I'm demoing at the grocery stores, most chicken operations do not have to deal with Mother Nature. Pretty much all of them. We do, because, hot, when it's super hot, it's really cold, if there's a storm, our birds are outside, so it's, there is that a little bit of risk, but we also have, other contract grower farms that support us and reduce that risk so that we're not dependent on one farm to carry the load.
I'm going to ask you in a minute about that network and how you might see using a network to grow. And I know we're gonna. I want to call out that this is episode 2 of a 3-part series where we're going to have you and Cameron, the CEO of Greener Pastures, back on together. And in that third conversation, we're really going to dig into what this farm is, how it came to be, who the investors and partners are, why this group is the group. We have a lot to talk about. We're really just touching around the edges here, almost as a teaser. But I also wanted to highlight the individuals that are key to this. And you and Cameron and several others are key members to bring this vision to light and drive it forward and steward it in a very thoughtful and meaningful way. But along those lines of that network, is that really going to be the way? Are you able to find other farms that are willing to convert potentially if they're already in existence, or people that want to get into this business that buy into this model to help meet the demand as it grows?
So far, I mean, we've found some success. Thankfully, Texas is a big producer. So we found there are a lot of farms around us in our, let's say, 100-mile radius. There are a lot of other farms. And back to the point of being proud of what you're doing, I mean, we're just in this tough gap where the average farmer is in their 60s, and we need to get people excited about farming. And again, there are people who want to get involved with regenerative agriculture. We've thankfully been able to find some farms that are interested in growing with us. And, so far we haven't run into that issue where, oh, there's no farms left to support our growth. So far, we're doing okay with the farmers we have, but we're definitely always on the lookout for new partners. And I know we have a lot planned for our e-commerce. I know we brought in a partner recently to help us continue to build on that. We just redid our website not too long ago and saw, I think our sales tripled from there. So I'm happy with the progress we're making, but there's still a lot more to do. I mean, just if I was just to focus on the institutional space, I mean, here in Texas, it just works as a simple bid process for the school where the cheapest vendor wins. And so naturally, the kids are all stuck with really gross food. I think there's a ton of progress to be made there. There's going to be so much opportunity there as far as just finding different ways to move the needle. We've done a few things. We worked on a blog with the local school about nutrition and mental illness. We have a campaign called Bring a Chicken to School, which is what it sounds like. I mean, we literally set up a lunch with local school, and then I bring one of our birds to the school. And, with this same school, we had done a lunch with a James Beard winner here in Texas. And we were excited, the school was excited, the parents were excited, but the kids didn't care as much as we had hoped. But I brought a chicken.
Well, it is a
And
Texas
they went,
school.
they
They've
went
seen a
insane.
chicken before.
They loved it. They
You do
went
that in
crazy for
Los
the
Angeles,
chicken,
California, chicken's going to be pretty popular because they've never probably seen a real chicken before. So,
It's a good point. It's a
yeah.
good point. But even still, it's just a fun way to educate the kids about where their food comes from, and that all that groundwork we laid last year has already set up a really nice start to the new school year. With schools making even bigger commitments to our farms, and wanting to rally around the good we're doing in the community.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. If you're playing the long game, Gen Alpha and whatever we call the generations coming after them, far more conscientious. Obviously, in part because, big part because of their access to information. Right? They can ask where their food comes from. They can ask where their products come from. They can ask why every item on Amazon comes in its own box, even though it's a tiny little pack of batteries. Why does it have to come in its own box? So I think you're going to see a much more conscientious, more educated consumer in the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and beyond, and they are going to be more informed and therefore more aware and therefore more likely to make thoughtful decisions about their purchasing power. We already see it. I say that. I'm not. That's not a guess. I mean, we see that in restaurants. We see that in a lot of other sectors today. So I applaud what you're doing. And tell us in the last minutes of this conversation. Tell us about this documentary you've alluded to, and you sent me a clip of. Not many chicken farms I've ever heard of in my life. Any producers, by the way. Most of these documentary type things are internal videos for training or selling to the retailer. They create something that hypes up the story they want to tell to hopefully sell it internally. But talk about the purpose and the goal and what you're trying to do differently with the cinematography of this documentary.
Yeah, no, I've seen, and I'm sure plenty of your viewers have seen plenty of food and farm documentaries, and I've always been frustrated that they feel very one-sided, a little preachy, a little redundant. There's one documentary out there that's, pulling in all the Hollywood actors to, to get to your heartstrings, and I can appreciate that because we need to find different ways to get the message out. But I thought this would be a good opportunity to be with a farm and see it for yourself as opposed to coming in for the little snippets here and there of what the farm might be, Again, there's just a huge problem, not just in our particular industry. I'm talking about poultry, but our food supply, our food system, it's very disjointed. I think we all learned a lot through COVID, just how fragmented and way too dependent our supply chains are on just big players. And a lot of our local food systems are not nimble enough. And we're just not getting enough high quality food into our communities. I mean, I think it's something like 70% of our food supply is up to something like that is ultra processed foods, right? So just there's a lot there in my mind. I think chickens there's a lot of symbolism in chicken, that I'm hoping we can redefine because I think the big chicken players have kind of ruined that. And I'm really hopeful that, we can at least get people to really think about what they're putting in their bodies, how we're taking care of the land, how we're taking care of our animals, how we're taking care of each other. That's kind of what we were trying to explore in this blog about nutrition and mental illness is, there's very clear data showing, that poor nutrition is connected to poor, just mental health problems. And I hope that we can just do our small part to help, So for the documentary, it's kind of like catching lightning in a bottle. It's not like, your typical narrative that has a script defined, right? So we've spent a year producing content and kind of trying to figure out how to put that first act together. And we have, I'd say, 20 to 30 minutes. And now we know how we want to complete the film and get the second act in with certain partners like yourself, that we're excited to film with. And I don't know, I think we have something really special to share, but it touches on a lot of things that affects everyone. And our particular food system, the American food system, is certainly not perfect. It's very far from perfect. We have obesity issues in our communities, our society, and mental health issues, as I was alluding to. And a lot of those food and farm documentaries just kind of bash the bad guys for 2 hours, And so this is a unique opportunity to focus on the good. Maybe we'll kind of address a little bit of what the problem is in the beginning, but I'd like to just kind of focus on what the good that this farm is doing, and I'm always want to reiterate that, this is nothing without, the farm and the plant teams. I get to do my fun part at the end, but they work their asses off, taking care of those birds 365. It's every day. There's
It's hard
people on
work.
Saturdays and
It's
Sundays.
really hard work. Dirty work too, but very, very out in the heat of Texas and the cold of Texas. I don't know when Texas has nice weather, but yeah, it's a challenging environment.
There's a little bit of a spring, a little bit of a fall, but it's definitely not California. I'll put it that way
Yeah.
when it comes to weather.
Well, awesome stuff, man. If look, one of the big goals here is I want people to learn about this product and the mission-driven incubator that it is, and the growth plan that it has. If people want to order it and try it for themselves at home, their restaurant, their institution, their education environment, I would encourage everybody. I was never a skeptic, but I'll tell you, I didn't really know how different a chicken could be on a plate until you taste it for yourself. And I was very fortunate to get some sent to my home and try it. Also, get to try it made by other people in a restaurant and in actually an event center in Denver, Colorado with you not too long ago. So I can attest firsthand as a restaurant guy and as a chef, former chef, recovered chef, it's a very different product and it's appreciable. And boy, if I could eat it every day, based on availability today, I don't ship it to my house every week. But when I can imagine not only the pleasure of getting it as a consumer, but the healthful benefits and effects of what you put in your body really does translate to your well-being and both mental and physical. And I look forward to having more people try it and hopefully hopefully subscribe or also ask for it. By the way, if you ask for it at your grocer and you ask for it at your restaurants and you get to know the people in your food service side of where you get your food, you'd be amazed at how little it takes for a consumer to drive change. So I would encourage you to try it and also drive change by asking for it. But where can they go find it? How can people get this chicken and try it for themselves?
Sure. GreenerPasturesChicken.com. You can have it shipped to your house if you're in Texas. We're at all the central markets throughout Central Texas, and we work with some great chefs here in the Austin area, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas. We do have a presence in Denver through Pasture Provisions, but we're still relatively new. But anywhere in the country, we can still ship to you. So just go to greenerpastureschicken.com. You can find a lot of good content around what we do, how we do it. We've got the blogs I was alluding to there. We've got a blog on the symbolism of chicken, nutrition and mental health, all kinds of resources there for people to learn more about what we're all about, and then try it for yourself.
And I would say follow the Instagram handle. Look, it's probably the only farm, if not certainly only chicken farm in America you'll ever follow on Instagram. But the content's amazing. It's really good. It's educational. It's entertaining. You can see what they're up to, where they're serving, who's getting excited about this food and this product. So I know it doesn't sound like the most riveting IG channel to follow, but actually, Diego does a fantastic job curating. I even commented on Diego's like, "Hey, thanks for commenting." I'm like, "No, really, I actually thought it was a cool post." So, never thought in my life I'd be following a chicken farm and being excited about a social media handle around a chicken product. But maybe I'm just a restaurant nerd. Who knows?
No, I appreciate that, bud. It's a fun part of my job, and I get to work with some amazing artists on all the content we put out. And again, as Vaughn would put it, it's a little bit of pressure, but also privilege, right? That
Yeah.
comes with that, And I don't take it for granted. And this farm is amazing, so it's something we're really excited to share.
All right. I've got a question or two for you. We always end these
Yeah.
conversations with something a little bit fun and personal. Austin, Texas, certainly one of the center points in the universe for phenomenal barbecue. And I
Mm.
am going to put you on the spot, so get ready.
Ooh. Okay.
If anybody is headed that way to Austin, Texas, for any reason, especially those who have not been there ever or often, what is the barbecue restaurant worth waiting in line for?
Oof.
Where are we going?
Man. There's a concept that's growing out here. If I had to just say barbecue. Oh, I know one. Okay. One I had recently was La Barbecue. And Allie made these smash burgers out of their brisket that were
Mm,
just like probably the most insane burger I've ever had. I know the smash burger thing is a bit of a trend, or you want to call it a fad. I don't know. I've heard chefs allude to them as trash burgers,
yeah.
but she made the most amazing burger with the brisket, and they just do phenomenal barbecue. I will add a second one. The guys behind Uchi and the guys behind Franklin's teamed up to make Loro, which I think is up to its sixth location. So those would be two off the top of my head where I'm like, I would not be disappointed. I've never been disappointed, and can confidently share that with your viewers.
Look, you're a big foodie. You've taken me some great restaurants when I got a chance to visit you there, and I would tell everybody to listen up, write those down, follow those on social, put it on your pinned reminder, boards or whatever it is. I'll definitely want to check out La Barbecue next time I'm there. Last question, Diego. Austin, well known for its music scene, maybe
Hmm.
only second behind Nashville in popularity or awareness. I think the quality is very, very high. It's not just country. In Austin, you can get all kinds of music, which is a little bit different than maybe Nashville. So next time I come to Austin, I want to go see some live music. Where are we going? Don't care what the genre is. Just tell me what are your favorite spots to go check out some live music in Austin.
Oh, that would be one off the top of my head would definitely be Stubbs. Also, there's the Moody Amphitheater. So those are two. I got to see Vampire Weekend at the Moody Amphitheater for the Eclipse, which was really cool. And then Stubbs has been great. Just a great chill spot, not too far from downtown. That is a pretty classic venue for music.
Nice. Very cool. Well, Diego, this has been awesome. Again, episode 2 out of 3. Our next conversation is going to be with you and the CEO of Greener Pastures, Cameron. We're going to get into some significant detail, really try to get the restaurant industry, retail food service aware of and familiar with and understanding why it matters. We're going to get into some really cool news and announcements. We've alluded, but not been specific about who the founding partners and investors are of this, who's come on in recent year or two to support this business, and what some of the plans are for this business that are going to be very, very big to talk about. So excited about that episode. Look forward to getting that in the books here, and we'll be publishing these all back to back together so everybody can listen. Great to have you, sir. Keep doing the great work. Keep sharing the beautiful message, and look forward to the next conversation.
No, thank you for having me, man. This is very grateful for this opportunity to share the farm with your audience, and I've really enjoyed working with you, man. So this is a real pleasure. Thank you.
Glad to do it. Talk soon. Thank you for listening to The Pineapple Perspective. If you loved today's episode, leave a review and a 5-star rating. I look forward to welcoming you back next time.